All right, let's do this. We're going to rewind the clock and talk about something you've definitely felt, even if you never had a name for it. We're calling it the September Switch.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Summer winds down, the weather changes, and it just feels like a new beginning, a fresh start. And it's way more than just back to school. And here's the thing, that feeling wasn't an accident. For a long, long time, that annual reset was completely intentional. It was a planned, manufactured moment.
This is what it was all about, the September Switch. It was this unofficial start to a new year, but for culture. It's when companies dropped their new tech, new TV seasons, and new trends, all times perfectly for when everyone was heading back to school and paying attention. So let's see how this all went down. We're going to start our journey in the 80s and track this September reset all the way into the 2000s. We'll look at how tech, TV, and entertainment all use this specific moment to launch their next big thing. So first up, let's talk tech. This is the story of how our computers went from being this massive box that lived in one room of the house to a powerful device that you literally carry everywhere in your pocket. I mean, just look at this evolution. The 80s kick off with the Commodore VIC-20, which for the first time made a home computer something normal people could actually own. Then the 90s became this huge software battle that basically put a Windows PC in every office and home. But man, by 2000, the whole game changed. Tech went mobile, it went personal, and thanks to things like the indestructible Nokia 3310 and the game-changing USB drive, it became something we couldn't live without.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because a problem started to pop up. The software was getting so good, you take a program like Photoshop 6.0, it could create these huge, amazing image files. But then what? How are you supposed to move a file that big? Your floppy disk was totally useless. And this right here, this explains everything. It was this perfect cycle, this tech feedback loop. Awesome software created a problem that needed a solution. That led to better hardware, like the USB drive. And then, once you had that amazing new hardware, well, you could make even more powerful software. It was this engine that just drove tech forward at an incredible speed through the 2000s. Now, that same kind of rapid change wasn't just happening on our computers. A whole new war was breaking out for our attention, a war for our eyeballs, fought on every TV and video game console in the country. Think about it. In the 80s, Saturday morning cartoons were a national ritual. We were all watching the same shows on the same 3 or 4 channels. But then came the 90s, and with it, the cable explosion. All of a sudden, channels weren't just showing cartoons. They were building entire identities. They were creating brands, like the WB did with its incredible DC animated universe. And because of that, shows like Batman the Animated Series, well, they weren't just for kids anymore. This quote says it all, right? It was a whole new era. Animation was finally being treated with respect, telling these dark, complex, and really dramatic stories that adults could get into. And this was the ultimate payoff. Cartoon Network launching Adult Swim was them basically saying, we get it. The kids who grew up watching our shows are adults now. They created a dedicated time slot for animation that was smarter, weirder, and way more mature. Okay, let's switch gears to video games. Because this chart, wow, it tells such a sad, fascinating story. So in September 2000, Sega drops NFL 2K1 on their super powerful Dreamcast. By all accounts, it was the better football game. But look at these sales numbers. It got absolutely demolished by Madden 2001, a game that came out on the older, much weaker PlayStation 1. So what happened? Why did the better tech lose? It's simple, really. It wasn't about the hardware. It was about the brand. Sony's PlayStation was a juggernaut. They had a huge number of consoles already in people's homes, and they had killer franchises like Tony Hawk that people loved and trusted. The Dreamcast taught everyone a really tough lesson. Sometimes being the most powerful just isn't enough. The battles weren't just on our screens. For this last section, let's listen to the sounds that were changing and watch the epic primetime brawls that were happening in the wrestling ring. This right here is like a perfect musical time machine. Check it out. 1985. The biggest hits are movie soundtrack rock and big anthemic pop. Now jump to 2003. It is a completely different world. The #1 single and album are straight-up hip-hop and R&B, driven by the absolute legends, the Neptunes. You couldn't ask for a clearer picture of how much music taste changed. And if you want one moment that captures all the tension of that change, this is it. At the VMAs, the politically charged rock band Rage Against the Machine loses an award to the massively popular nu metal band Limp Bizkit, and their bassist just starts climbing the set in protest. I mean, it was literally a culture war playing out live for everyone to see.
And speaking of wars, you had one of the biggest ever in pro wrestling. In the mid-90s, WCW bet the entire farm on one giant storyline, the NWO invasion. It was a cool idea, but over at the WWF, they took a totally different route, building their show around a bunch of different, really personal and intense rivalries between their biggest stars.
By September of 2000, you could see exactly which strategy paid off. The WWF's main event was a high-stakes world title match. WCW's main event? It was a wedding. That says it all, doesn't it? The WWF was about compelling fights, and WCW had just lost the plot. Just 6 months later, they were out of business.
So when you put it all together, what is the story of the September switch? Well, it's a story of massive change. Technology went from a box in a room to a device in your hand. Television went from everyone watching the same thing to having a million niche options. And entertainment taught us that a powerful franchise can beat almost anything. Which really just leaves us with one last big question. Today, in our world of on-demand everything and constant updates, is that big September reset totally gone? Or has the switch just changed its nature? Maybe it's not one big flip anymore, but a constant low hum of change happening all the time. Something to think about.